We have 3 meetings tonight. So the next meeting to do is the rescheduled meeting of the Cunningham Township Board from January 2nd, 2018. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustees Ammons?
Yeah, here.
Brown? Here. Hazen?
Here.
Jacobson?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Roberts? Wu? Mayor Marlin?
Here. Next up is public participation.
We have minutes from December 4th and December 18th.
Sorry. You have public participation next. Is that out of
Sorry,
order?
You're right. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll do public participation. We have Jamie Willard.
Hello,
Evening.
my name is Jamie Willard. I'm here tonight to ask the board to strongly consider asking for the resignation of Wayne Williams. Mr. Williams has been proven to be untrustworthy. For almost a year now, Mr. Williams has had contact with both Ms. Hooper and I through Ms. Hooper, through both text messages and phone calls. He has been giving us reassurance that he is going to keep the current staff. We had no idea that he was going to get rid of us. He stated he was going to keep the staff and was asking what we were thinking of office hours, any changes we felt the office needed. One text he wrote that he would not make any changes until the new fiscal year. Came as a surprise to us. Mr. Williams has been proven to be unethical. He hired a friend without posting the job to the public. That friend happened to have pending felony charges. In the assessor's office, especially at this time of year, the duties include going out to properties to measure improvements, as well as meeting with residents to collect financial information for their tax freeze. I am sure the community deserves better than what Mr. Williams felt was an appropriate employee. At first, he defended his decision to do this. And without the word of township abolishment, this probably would have stuck, and this employee probably would not be getting fired. In my opinion, this would have continued and diminished the integrity of the office and put the citizens of this community in harm's way. Mr. Williams has proven in the past to have failed in this line of work. An article in the News Gazette from May 26, 2012, Wayne was a member of the Champaign County Board of Review. The article states that 2 board of review members were up for appointment. However, the board, in general, that Wayne was a chairman of, was failing. And they were told they need to remove all board of review members, and that is exactly what happened. Mr. Williams has proven he is not loyal. On April 9th, 2013, that election, Mr. Williams claimed to be a citizen of the city of Champaign, ran for the office of the assessor for the city of Champaign. He lost that election. In 2014, petitions for Champaign County Clerk were filed for Wayne to run for that office. He withdrew from that race. Looks like Mr. Williams found an easy in this Cunningham Township, ran unopposed. He may have won the election by default, but is clearly not here for the citizens of this community. It has come to my attention that Mr. Williams was offered the use of a local HR representative to come and talk to us. He decided to use someone from Belleville, Illinois, that later was found to be one of his Facebook friends. Mr. Williams has also said that Ms. Hooper and I rejected talking to the HR person and that is false. We did not know that an HR person was coming. Well, we knew one was coming. We didn't know when they were coming. He just said, they're coming, and I hope they come ASAP. We sat there for 2 weeks waiting. I went on vacation, and Kim was away at a wrestling event at the time. The HR person came. That person came, they talked to Katie. She let them know this information. This was the Friday before Christmas. She showed up unannounced. We did not say that we would not talk to this person. Ms. Hooper called this person and emailed this person to let her know she was back in the office that afternoon. She heard nothing back from this person. Mr. Williams was also handled the authority to choose the health insurance for the township. He decided not only to change the company that we've had for the last 8 years plus, but he moved the brokerage from a local brokerage to one in Harvey, Illinois. And I'm thinking that this was probably not just a random draw. Maybe that was a friend too. I don't know. He's not here for the community. An article in Sunday's paper stated that there was a lot of work to do, not a lot of staff. I don't know if Mr. Williams knows what work there is to do in that office, because I know what work is to do in that office, and I know that we personally, the 3 staff members, Katie, Kim, and I, have done more than half of the work that is due for this spring. We left that office in very, very good shape. I would like to know what Mr. Williams even knows about the office, what he knows about what work needs to be done or not, because by that article, I'm not sure he's even looked what's there. The office is already understaffed with the resignation of Wayne Williams. I know 2 very, very qualified individuals that could come back to their jobs and fill those shoes. We probably don't need to reapply. As sitting here tonight, I'm still a current employee. Our termination is not till tomorrow. This board may not have the authority to remove Mr. Williams. However, you have an obligation to do what is best for the citizens of this community. By publicly asking for Mr. Williams to resign from this position, you are showing that the constituents you are looking out for, you are doing it in their best interests. Thank you.
Eric?
As you've pointed out, our authority in this matter is limited. But I do want to express my regret at how this played out, and also just mention publicly that we did receive a letter from a constituent that was very effusive in, this had to do with this issue of somebody turning up and saying, oh, I own part of your property. And this had been done around a particular subdivision. And this individual said, of all of the people in government whom she talked to, you had been the one who had taken great pains to help her understand the issue and help her understand how to deal with it. So I'll thank you for your service.
Thank you. I loved my job. I worked very hard for my job. I had 10 years in this career. And someone could come in. 10 minutes, it was gone.
Thank you very much. Jared?
I just want to public comment that while I do not necessarily agree with the methods Mr. Williams took, I do want to take note to one comment that you just made about his dedication to civil service based on running unopposed. every single person that you're seeing before here, with the exception of the mayor, we all ran unopposed. Not a single person who was elected to city council and vicariously to the township board ran in an opposed race. We all ran unopposed. I think that a person who chooses to run for office, whether they have an opponent or not, is showing a level of commitment that a lot of other people do. There's thousands of people who live in my ward, and not one of them could be bothered to run for what I'm doing. So
I understand. I also ran unopposed for my position.
So I just want to make that clear to the people that are out there that I don't, by default, that is not something I believe. I don't believe that Wayne is not going to serve or do his due diligence in his position just because he ran unopposed.
We all have an opinion.
Thank you, and I would like to remind council members that we don't debate people who are providing public input. Thank you. Thank you,
Jamie.
Jamie. Thank you. Next up is Claudia Linhoff.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Lenhoff, and I'm the Executive Director of Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, and I am also a resident of Urbana. I am here tonight on behalf of healthcare consumers regarding the issue of whether or not to consider dissolving the township. We urge you to move slowly and ensure public dialogue before there is any attempt to dissolve the township through vote or referendum. Many of our fellow community members may not be familiar with what Cunningham Township does for our community. In fact, unless you or someone you care for is in very desperate and dire straits, you might never have reason to know the township and the social services it provides. Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office provides very important social services that form a safety net of last resort for Urbana residents who do not qualify for other forms of assistance, such as welfare or SSI. Most of the clients served by our township are single individuals with no minor children who have become disabled and unable to work, but who have not yet qualified for Social Security disability, which is a grueling process that can take years. Our township provides monthly cash assistance for those who qualify. Our township also has emergency housing programs to help prevent homeless individuals from sleeping outside or residents from being evicted from housing. Many healthcare consumers, Urbana clients benefit from these life-sustaining services, and Cunningham Township is an important resource for our clients. Help from our township can literally mean saving someone's life, saving their life from the ravages and dangers of homelessness, despair, from disintegration, and poor health. Getting rid of the township is an issue that warrants robust public discussion. It is difficult for me to see how the city of Urbana could absorb and then carry out the functions of the township, especially with regard to social services provided to poor individuals. A recently passed law allows for the dissolution of townships, and the News-Gazette is cheering you on to take this action. Dissolving the township would be easy. You could place a referendum on the ballot, and it would be binding if it passed. But our perspective is that Cunningham Township serves a vital and very local purpose, and it is certainly not duplicative or redundant. Abolishing our township would take away important resources in our community, and this decision should not be made in the heat of the moment, heat created by an unrelated personnel issue. Our township provides very valuable services to Urbana residents who would otherwise fall through the cracks. There is value in that, and quite frankly, Cunningham Township services are one of the very best things about Urbana. We believe that the public has a right to learn more about the township, its functions, and what's at stake if it is to be dissolved via referendum. Likewise, the public has a right to learn what the city's plans would be to assume the functions of the township. Would the city assume all the functions and programs, or just some? The News-Gazette editorial on January 7th called township government, quote, a blight on the state of Illinois, and, quote, a throwback to government of 100+ years ago. I would wager that the beneficiaries of township services would not refer to it as a blight. Healthcare consumers could not disagree more with the News-Gazette. Because township government is very local, Townships are perfectly positioned to be responsive to community needs in ways that other units of government are not. Townships are an old form of government, sure, but old doesn't mean that it's outdated or unnecessary or bad. By the News Gazette's own logic, we might as well also dismantle Congress. Again, we urge you to proceed with caution. If you do wish to explore possibilities, please consider holding public education sessions and public dialogue opportunities outside of regular council or township board meetings. This issue deserves a robust and inclusive discussion. Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, Claudia, thanks. It's not really a question so much as thanks for helping to start the discussion on this issue. I think the email I got from Healthcare Consumers this afternoon did a good job of framing it, and we've received about 27 emails in response to that so far. So I think you've struck a chord with a lot of people.
Laura Haber?
I didn't ask to speak, I was just registering.
I misread, sorry.
But I would like to say I oppose the dissolution of the township.
Laura Haber is registering opposition to the dissolution of the township. Sorry, I misread your card. James Kilgore?
Good evening, I'm James Kilgore. I'm the co-director of First Followers and also a resident of Urbana. I also wanted to speak on the issue of the dissolution of the township. I think it's obvious that there's a very complicated employment issue before the council in regard to the township, and I know that sometimes when there's these issues that tend to attract a lot of attention, there's actually distraction and things happen that have long-term consequences and they kind of slip under the radar. So I'm very concerned because the Cunningham Township has been invaluable as a resource for First Followers, our reentry program. And I think the council members are aware that we have received social services funding through the council, through the township. But I think it's very important to recognize the unique quality of the township services, that if there's a blight on state and national government right now, it's not because of townships, it's because social services are being systematically stripped away and denuded of resources, and the services made available to vulnerable populations are disappearing. And those are the very populations that we serve as First Followers and the very populations that the township serves. And I think, to be honest, I think it's an absurd contention to think that the city council can simply absorb the township and take over that function. Why is it? Because to create an effective social service agency requires building a culture and an ethos of caring. It requires the types of people who are dedicated to that service, but also have a direct connection and a communication to the people that they're serving, and it requires at least some people amongst that cohort who have the lived experience of the people that they're serving. And that's what we've seen in the rebuilding of this township as we, as First Followers, have made use of the services. We send people to the township to get support. They also send people to us. And what we find is that there's a connection. At First Followers, we believe that those who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, and we think that's a similar thing that happens in the township. So to simply think that opening up a social services project is about getting an office, a computer, a phone, a website, that's not what it's about. It's about building an organization, building the ability to communicate, and building credibility amongst the people that you're serving, so they have faith in the fact that you're going to do the best you can for them, and that you're also helping build their capacity to solve the problems themselves. So don't in any way take a hasty move here because of some employment issues, which I understand are very complicated and need attention and need resolution, but please don't use this as an opportunity to dissolve one of the most effective social service agencies that we have in Urbana and in all of Champaign County. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Hardenware.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Kim Hardenware. I recently became the victim of a land sale to Brian J. Nastras of Barrington, Illinois, more commonly known as Nasty Joe. On December 1st, I received a letter from Nastras stating that he owns a piece of land that is inside the fence on my property. In preparation to respond to him, I visited the office of Dan Welch, County Treasurer. I was given his name by Timberline Valley residents in Champaign who are also dealing with Nastras. I asked how something inside my fence came to be for sale and why I wasn't notified so I could purchase it. Mr. Welch informed me that they are not responsible for telling people, but as a courtesy, they do send out a postcard to adjacent property owners, letting them know that a lot is going up for sale. They said they'd been sending a postcard to my address every year since they have owned the property, which was in 2000, but they had the previous owners' names on them for the last several years, since I've owned the house. They noted that these postcards had been returned to their office each time, which spurred me to ask why didn't someone investigate why the postcards were being returned. And basically I received shrugs and an I don't know. Interesting side note though, the neighbors on the other side of this property never got a postcard either. I feel that procedures in the assessor's office need to be reviewed. The current practices have failed miserably when it came to contacting me and another hardworking, home-owning, tax-paying family in Urbana. The Moore family, who resides on North Smith Road, has also lost a small parcel they thought was theirs to Nasty Joe. So the contact procedures that are used now, are they the same as 20 to 30 years ago? If yes, why would the increase in available technology have better notification systems not been put in place? And failing having the funding to install better technology, it seems to me that common sense should have prevailed. Something as easy as physically getting out from behind a desk and visiting the property would have resulted in a knock on my door, a note left to return a call, and or a letter to contact the office. I have maintained the property in pristine condition without ever having a city ordinance violation filed against me. And this failure needs to be addressed right away so it doesn't happen to any more innocent victims. I'm seeking help to find a way to rightfully possess this strip of land before Nastras sends his people to clear my trash from his property, as he's threatened to do twice now. I have some pictures that I want to leave with you and the exchange of letters and emails between Nastras and myself. The piece of property in question is 3.75 feet wide by 110 feet long. And currently my deck, half of my deck and half of my above ground swimming pool sit on that property. And my fence. And he has threatened me now 2 times that he's going to send people, if I don't have it cleared by the end of the month, to take it down himself. I appreciate your time. And who should I give this to? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Question?
Yeah, have you consulted an attorney?
I have.
Okay, so then okay. Because this happened to me several decades ago. I got a letter from an attorney retained by the person who owned the property south of us, not when you owned it, Diane, but way before that, and claimed that they owned half my garage, and cited some, some map. At any rate, they didn't, and it was so. But if you've got an attorney, you're probably in good hands.
I do. I have an attorney, and he has advised me to go back to all the people who helped in the sale of my home, which unfortunately they're all no longer in business. So I'm getting no relief that way. So I decided to come and speak with y'all.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, thanks for coming. This is something that's really bugged a lot of people. I guess I'd like to know if the city can, it's probably too late in your case, but I think there should be things that we could do to prevent that in the future. And I know that sometimes when we've had property to dispose of, the first thing we've done is given it to the neighboring property owners. I don't know why other people that owned whoever owned that strip before, you'd think that would have been almost easier than putting it up for sale. The other thing is when these properties come up for sale, there's very little transparency. I've thought about bidding on those kind of things before, but you have to actually register and buy the list. You can't even see what's available unless you register and pay money and stuff. And so it seems like that ought to be public information. Maybe the city could buy the list and accidentally make it public, or I don't know.
Had
there ought
I
to be some way to
known,
make
I would have gladly
that should be
bought.
public information,
I would have
right?
gladly bought it
And
if
then,
I had known.
if one of your friends might have seen it, or we could have seen it and saw, oh, there's these little strips coming up for sale. There's something funky going on there. Let's go
Yeah.
talk to people. So that's really disturbing. I don't know how he's going to clear it with equipment and stay on his property. That might be a problem. So if he comes to clear it, I hope you have somebody there that will keep him off of your property and your neighbor's property.
Yeah.
Talk to a lawyer.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's
working
anything the
with
city
someone.
can do, if you can think of anything, definitely let us know, and we'll do what we can as far as trying to make things more open through the county's process.
Yeah.
Eric?
Could I just maybe ask legal, can we brainstorm at some time about whether we have any power to write an ordinance that would preclude this kind of thing from happening? If we can, we should, I guess. Either of the great legal minds over there, I'd love to know.
Well, as it happens, I was involved in such a case where the claim was to half the driveway, a couple blocks from here, litigated over a period of about 10 years, and the city authorities at that time were of zero help. We were told to go away and leave the city alone. Nobody around here now is involved in that. Didn't involve the city council, but the city wasn't interested, and I'm not aware of any kind of ordinance the city could adopt that would regulate it. I would think, I don't mean to be giving legal advice to anybody here, but I think the obvious first thing to look at is your title insurance policy, because that's the purpose of a title insurance policy, is to ensure that you own the property that you're buying.
Do we have power to codify the principle of adverse possession? Is that
Well,
something
I
to think
mean,
about?
I suppose you could pass an ordinance. One thing I could comment on, and I mean, this is something that even occurred in the case that I referred to. The city has zoning ordinances that affect this.
So,
The property I was involved with was 7 feet wide at one end, went to a point, it was 20 or 30 feet long. Under the city's zoning ordinance, nothing could be built on it because of the setbacks. And that would certainly be something to look at for the situation, wherever it arises, how the use of it may be.
But- Well, the principle of adverse possession, as I understand it, is that if you have a structure on a piece of property and it's been there for a certain number of years, 7 years is what I heard, that you own it.
Okay, well, I've been there 11 years.
Because, okay, this was how my case was resolved. But anyway,
Well,
I'm not
that's
a lawyer.
what my attorney is looking at right now.
Okay.
Even though Mr. Nastras tells me it has to be 20 years.
I don't think so.
But he wants me to give him $3,200 for it, and I don't have that kind of money.
Well, we
So-
can look into what options the city has, and I think the notification is at least
Yeah,
a place to start.
Yeah, that's
Because
really
this
important.
all happens under the radar, and
It did.
people are blindsided by it, and that's always well, that's terrible. So
Yeah.
we'll look into what we can do for notification from the county.
yeah. He bought it in May and then waited until December to tell me so he could get his deed.
Sure.
And I couldn't get the sale overturned.
He knows what he's doing. He's
Yeah,
done
he
this.
does.
He's done this all over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll let you know what we find out.
Okay.
Last person who's asked to speak to the Cunningham Town Board is Mariam Rahim.
Good evening. My name is Mariam Rahim, and I reside in Urbana. I'm here to speak to the issue of the township assessor. My comments are pretty pointed. I would like to say, as an observer in the audience, when Jared Miller clarified that numerous people had run unopposed and that in no way affected your ability or qualification to run, I didn't hear or see that as an argument with the person sitting here. Particularly since prior to that, Mr. Jacobson made a comment that seemed to be in support of the person, and he was not chastised. So I think that there was a difference in the way that the two councilmen's comments were made. And I feel that Mr. Jarrett's was particularly appropriate since Mr. Williams had just suffered a long and personal attack, both on him personally and on his character, implying that if he previously had run for office and chose to withdraw, somehow he was waiting until he had the perfect unopposed position. So I do want to say that I appreciate that Mr. Jared Miller simply clarified the process, and I wanted to thank him for that.
Thank you. We do have one other person, David Sutton. Is he still here? He wanted to speak. He left, but his topic was on fees and fines. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the town board? Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting from December 4th, 2017, and the special meeting of December 18th. Is there a motion for
I'll
approval?
move approval of those minutes.
I'll second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Dean. Any corrections? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. These minutes are passed. Committee to verify bills. Ms. Chenoweth?
This month, we had $62,487.93 in expenditures in the town fund, $27,240.58 in expenditures in the general assistance fund. That total, if you do your math, is $81,049.57. I sent out town bills that were from the last meeting to the present meeting. The most recent email I sent you was for the entire month of December. If you pass these, if you approve these bills, you may just want to say with a caveat that some of them have been prior approved at the December 18th meeting. Any questions?
Jared?
I'll move approval of the funds.
A second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Eric. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustees Ammons? Brown?
Yes.
Hazen?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. Reports of officers?
Okay. Since I have a fairly lengthy report, I'm actually going to let the new assessor give his report first, and then we'll come back to the financial report.
That's fine. Yep.
Thank you. I'm Wayne Williams, the new Cunningham Township Assessor. For the month of January, our focus will be on the following January responsibilities. 2018 assessment work is due by June 15th of this year. For this time of year and based on state statute, it's our office's responsibility to value all properties in their current conditions as of January 1st. As of this month, our focus for this time is viewing conditions of property and any and all photos left for 2018 assessment work that the office has received through building and demo permits from the city, as well as notes given from the previous administration. Viewing of these properties will take place beginning tomorrow, and the projection completion is January 30th. These properties will include residential, commercial, industrial, and any farm properties other than farmland valuation. According to the Champaign County Assessment Office, senior citizen over 65 status and assessment freeze exemption applications will be run by the County Assessment Office on January 9th. Once we receive the status and freeze application forms, as well as our letter, we will review the 2018 status list provided by the county to check against last year's status forms that were turned in to make sure that every citizen that is entitled for a New Year's status and freeze application receives one. Once review is completed, we will prepare the mailing, which will include a letter from my office explaining and walking through what every citizen is receiving, as well as instructions and contact information if assistance is needed. We will also offer at-home assistance if any citizen is in need. Once the mailing is prepared, we will work with the Champaign County Supervisor of Assessments on mailing the envelopes through the bulk rate that the county has, along with the other townships that are mailing annual statuses. The projected date of completion for this is January 19th. We will begin reviewing the final 2018 sales study once provided from the Champaign County Supervisor of Assessments Office to review all sold properties that will be considered valid sales according to the Illinois Department of Revenue, and to see if any sales that have outlier sales ratios that would need to be reviewed. Sales studies play a crucial role in our yearly evaluation process for being able to track our township 3-year median level of assessments, as well as finding market trends for yearly reviews on each neighborhood throughout the township. With the purchase made of the Visual PAMS Pro software made by the previous administration, I do feel that one of my focuses that will extend beyond January of this year will be to utilize this software to its full capabilities that will allow my office to become less dependent on the Champaign County Supervisor of Assessments Office for sales studies, neighborhood factoring, and assessment record keeping such as border review decisions and changes. The Visual PAMS Pro software will allow our property record card systems to eventually go paperless and hopefully online, with full records on hand at all times to allow for greater accuracy as far as records kept, and this would prevent lost or misplaced records. The system will also allow us to place yearly valuation on properties that use market trends not only from statewide, but also update information on local markets as well. My office will continue to provide excellent customer service during the transition. Taxpayer education and assistance is our #1 responsibility.
Any questions?
Even though there wasn't an actual sale, the hotel was, there was an offer on it, which suggested a much larger market value than I think is reflected in the current assessment. Will it be possible to adjust that on that basis?
As far as the hotel goes, just like any property in the township, it is my intention to make sure that every property in the township is valued fairly and accurately according to statute.
Great.
Any other questions? Bill?
Yeah, from your perspective, do you see anything that the township could do on these slivers of property? I don't know, maybe Nasty Joe already found all of them that exist, but is there anything the township could do that would help pick out problem properties like that before somebody else finds them?
You know, I only heard about this from what was in the newspaper. I did not realize this was an issue in Cunningham Township. So this is something that I'll be investigating.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
So continue reports of officers. Each month, and I will try to be brief because I know you have a lot of meetings this evening, so if you have questions, you can always ask me questions. I'll give you the short version. I do provide assistance statistics every single month. We've seen dramatic increase in the use of our services since we kind of remove barriers to access. Walk-ins have increased dramatically. We had 43 last month. And so far 20 in January. That's significantly more than usual. Just so you understand, walk-ins is not like a person coming in to buy a piece of candy and leave. A person walking in is usually in a very desperate situation, and working with them can take several hours. General assistance participants are at 60, up from 53. The details are here. And I think advocacy clients are up 63 from 61 last month. I'm going to talk a little bit about our homeless assistance program. After program design and legal review, the township soft launched a homeless assistance program. This was aimed at ensuring those in Urbana who are unsheltered can access life-saving shelter. It was launched about the time that it started to get really cold. And it was accelerated by negotiations when I was in conversation with CU Men's Emergency Shelter in Austin's Place to open by November 1st. The men's shelter opened the 20th, and the women's shelter opened December 11th. As you recall, there were a number of freezing dates before those dates. Neither of these shelters accept adults with children. The emergency shelter program for parents with children has been backlogged. We have had only one of our participants gain access to shelter through this program. I'm working with RPC to rectify this, since this is their program and it is called emergency shelter, but it's not functioning as such, in my opinion. Courage Connection only takes victims and survivors of domestic violence. They're wonderful. They should be supported. People should know they only take a slice. So women and children have literally been left out in the freezing cold in Champaign-Urbana this winter season. We have had children in our office who have slept in cars the night before, multiple children. We have had men and women on unheated porches or in garages. This prompted us to launch a homeless assistance program, which is a portion of the emergency assistance program we discussed and is still on track to start in February. I do want to announce that this is what you pay the your township dollars for. If you see someone on the street who is unsheltered, please direct them to our office. We build trusting relationships based on love and care. We offer round-the-clock support via cell phone. We answer the telephone every single time someone calls. Try us. Call the phone. You'll see. You will always get an answer, unless it's between 12 and 1, which is our only downtime in the office. We take a break. We do same-day appointments for emergencies. We turn around resources very quickly. I am in the office every day, many weekends, and often evenings, and I am the person who authorizes the checks to be cut, and I prioritize emergencies. We do home visits for the homebound, and we frequently have done home visits because many of the people we're working with are disabled. We do not give up on our care and concern for Urbana residents. So I want to let folks know that that the township is your resource. It is what you give your tax dollars to so that we can support the poorest of the poor in our community. Lastly, the mid-year financial report you have before you. I'm happy to take any questions, but the short version is the income is at 47%. Expenses are running at 41%. I would expect that to be close to 50, although there are some outstanding invoices. We operate on a cash basis. I have provided notes for any expenses that runs over 55%. So if you have any questions, if something looks unusual, I have provided notes in the document that I emailed to you. I will note that we have room to grow our programming significantly. As you know, we started with 26 clients, and we are now pushing, we're at 137. That doesn't include the 41 pending applications that we have. So I think that as we continue to ramp up our provision of general assistance and on track to launch emergency assistance, that we will see that programming grow. I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Bill?
Yeah, I think you also mentioned in an email when you told us about the closed session that you would be working on personnel policies together with Wayne to come up with some kind of combined personnel policies for the township.
Correct. Thank you for, so last June I requested a single personnel policy for the Cunningham Township. The supervisor's office had personnel policies that went through legal review a number of years ago. They're pretty solid. There are a few changes I'd like to make. Wayne has shown interest in having one personnel policy which does a better job of protecting the township than the current assessor's personnel policy.
Eric?
I have another. To what extent do you envisage the personnel policies in the township to align with the city's personnel policies? I mean, one of the big differences is, you have at-will employees, for example, and we have civil service employees at the same level. Would it be a bad idea to have civil service protection? And should the township have the same harassment policy as the city does?
The supervisor's office does have an anti-harassment policy. I'm happy to look at the personnel policy of the city. I think the big difference is that the township is a much smaller entity. And so I think when we shape personnel policies, I don't think we need to make things more complex than they need to be. So essentially what we've done, just like we did with the healthcare policy, et cetera, is that we pick the policy that fits the township. The city has hundreds of employees. We have a certain number, and that's what we look at. But I'm happy, as I said in my email to the town board, we're happy to take our input on personnel policies.
Dean?
It's been a little while since we talked about the healthcare situation, and I believe Mr. Williams filled in for you on that as you were gone. Can you remind me why we switched companies and how much notice the employees got on that?
So we switched. I notified my employees back in October that we were looking at options, and I gathered each of their input on those options, including what physicians they wanted to protect in the switchover. The issue is that our Health Alliance policy was disappearing, which is part of the problem is policies come and go each year. So essentially we had to select a different policy. So we were looking for how to increase the coverage because frankly, compared to places I had worked for over the past 15 years, we didn't have a particularly good policy in my opinion. So we're looking to increase coverage. We had a high deductible, we had high out-of-pocket expenses, and we were looking at cost, flexibility, and coverage. And we looked at everything, Health Alliance, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, et cetera. Those conversations were done, but the incoming assessor and myself looked down and looked at our set of options.
So this is something that you review, the person in your position reviews annually, or?
Well, in this case, because it was going away, we were forced to look at what our options were. We couldn't just roll over into the same policy. I do think it's a good idea, especially with the shifting health insurance world, that we look at the policies each year. I also, I encourage the assessor and myself to always speak to the employees and gather their input in making decisions.
Okay, and you have the ultimate authority on deciding it then?
Correct.
Okay, and were they notified in October this was going to happen, or that something was happening? Or?
Well, my employees knew October, November that we were looking at options, and in December, which is the appropriate time, late November, December, I let them know that we were making that switch. Okay. And I had no concerns from the supervisor's side employees.
Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit more on the healthcare, I raised questions last time about the difference between the township and the city policies. We wanted to try to keep them as close as possible. And I think the township policies were costing 20-25% more, and it concerned me that they might be getting better policies, but then I realized from the Blue Cross Blue Shield person that because of the smaller number of people in the group that it's probably just not a very good deal. But she did mention that it's not a good deal, that it's you can't get the same economics with a small group as you can with the city. She did mention, though, that the city policy might be able to be made available to township employees. So we asked that you guys look into that and maybe look into that and switching to the city policy if you can.
Yeah, we actually share the dental policy with the city, and that has really been the most cost-effective. Because we're a small group, we can take into consideration, we both get dinged because we're a small group, but we can also take into consideration what the employees need in that space. It also is a difference potentially in philosophy. I believe in, as you have seen, I have brought wages down on the supervisor's side, and I've increased benefits. That reflects my philosophy, that essentially we should have good coverage, good benefits coverage, if we're going to reduce salaries and overhead.
And I also mentioned that I appreciated the opportunity for employees to contribute to the health, what's it called?
Yes.
The savings plan, because you can roll it over from job to job. And if, I wish I'd had that at U of I 20 years ago, then, when I quit or if I want to take a 6-month leave, I have money to pay my health care expenses in that saving plan. So it's great for younger people or people that, don't have continuous health care issues that wouldn't want the high deductible. But I think if the city committee wants to look into a plan similar to that, I think it'd be good. I mean, I think that's a good approach.
Yeah. It's a inexpensive way to provide additional benefit to employees that's significant. It's a tax shelter, so to speak, for those dollars, and it doesn't cost much to administer. So I would encourage the city to look at that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Unfinished business?
There's none.
New business?
New business, as you recall, in June, we met to authorize certain individuals to sign checks for Cunningham Township with the changeover of the supervisor. We're doing the same with the changeover of the assessor. Essentially, those who could sign, and there was a change from what I sent you. I missed an email from Charlie, but essentially, we're proposing 3 members of the clerk's office sign checks and 3 members from the supervisor's office be able to sign checks. So both deputy clerks as well as Charlie would sign, And then myself, Wayne, and Kyle Patterson, my case manager, would be signers in the township office.
So the correct resolution is the one that was on the desk?
Exactly, yep, and so you should see Elizabeth K. Mary is listed in the correct copy, which is printed before you.
Any questions? Bill?
So on each check, are 2 signatures required on each check?
Correct.
And does one have to be from the township, from the clerk's office, and one from the supervisor?
No,
Any 2 signatures?
any 2 signatures.
Thank you.
I have requested as a procedure that unless I am absent, that I be one of the signatures, since I'm also ultimately responsible as CEO of the township. There are times in my absence that that's not possible.
Questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution number T-2018-01-001R, resolution authorizing certain individuals to sign checks for the Cunningham Township.
Second.
Moved by Jared, second by Aaron. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just,
Bill?
I wonder if, maybe Elizabeth, I don't know, could we borrow the city's expertise for a moment to just let us know if that's common with the auditors to, I mean, if you have people from both the township, the clerk's office and the township, it seems like you should have one from each sign the checks. Is that, I don't know.
I don't think what Danielle's proposing is unusual.
Okay.
I mean, it's sometimes difficult to find 2 people to sign a check.
It doesn't matter if, I mean, I thought the reason you had some from both offices so that there'd be a cross check between offices, but you're saying it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean,
really work
I
that
think
way.
in that situation that if Charlie signs a check, he's functioning as the town clerk. He's functioning as an officer of the township. So.
Okay. All right. That satisfies me. Thanks.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. With no further business before the Cunningham Town Board, the meeting is adjourned.